Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys your PGL Season 14 post-draft PRs. I know they're a little bit late. I'm sorry guys, I've just been incredibly swamped with school and other content and things like that, but they're here for you now. I'm definitely really excited to talk about these low-tier drafts with you guys. And yeah, with that being said, we can kind of jump on into it. Now, before we jump in, I did kind of want to talk about different rules, not even different rules, really just the Tera rule, because I was kind of asked to elaborate my thoughts on exactly what I thought about the Tera rule for this draft. And what the rule is that you must draft a Tera typing. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it, to be completely honest. Extremely restrictive, and it feels a lot like drafting Z Crystals in early Gen 7. I don't know if any of you played back then. I'm a boomer at this point, man. I started playing like 2017, 2018, so back in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. There was a brief period there where after the WBE drafted Z Crystals, a lot of leagues drafted Z Crystals as their rule, and it seems very restrictive. It leaves some teams at the top end with incredibly great typings, or, you know, Z Crystals in that instance, but in this instance, great typings that fit their team well. Whereas other teams, they kind of end up putting it off and, you know, having subpar typings or less than, you know, optimal typings. Whereas I think it's much more consistent if you don't want to do free Tera captains, like a Teramon that can turn anything. I totally understand that, because it's actually not my favorite way of doing that as well. But something that you can do instead is just making a Pokemon a Tera captain and them having to declare a type, because then if I draft a Floatzel but I get stuck with Tera Bug, I'm not just shit out of luck because I have no Pokemon that can Tera Bug. I can Tera Water my Floatzel and smash things in the rain, if that makes any sense. So I'm not the biggest fan of the ruling, personally, but it's interesting to see how it goes. You guys will have to let me know how you enjoy it throughout the season, if you prefer it opposed to other Tera rules that you've tried, and things like that. But yeah, other than that, important roles when drafting in a low-tier draft, realistically, it's almost the exact same. Now, the big difference in low-tier draft, in my personal opinion, comes in the sense that the things that are important in a regular draft are not as readily available. Like, for example, steel types or fairy types are incredibly limited. Or good speed. It is very hard to have good speed tiers in a low tier metagame, or in a low tier draft. So that's going to be something that I'm personally going to really value on these teams. If they really prioritize getting these solid roles and really filling out their teams and making them very cohesive, it's going to be a big boost for me and a big plus side for me. So yeah, with that being said though, I think we can kind of finally jump into it. I'm going to kind of order these in rank of 16 all the way up to 1, and we'll kind of go through them. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about all of them, because I know you guys probably have things to do, and I have things to do tonight, so we're going to get through them pretty quickly here. Number 16, we have the Colorado Gigaliths here. It's now the plus sides to the team, right? And I do have some notes written down, so I'm going to scroll down and find all of them as we go. So there's a Colorado Gigaliths. I like Tauros Paldea a lot. I think it's a great Pokemon. I think it's incredibly solid in low tier, solid speed tier, Intim, bulk up, water fighting is a great typing, right? But beyond that, there's not much cohesiveness. There's not much at the top. I'm trying to find the round 2 pick. The round 2 pick in Xatu is interesting. It's not a bad Pokemon, and there's not like a ton of like terrible Pokemon in general, right? You have things like Froslass, which is a great Pokemon. Berserker's a solid steel type in low tier. I like Camerupt for high tier electrics. I like Xatu. It's a good Pokemon. But realistically, other than that, the team very much so falls off. It really does kind of fall off a ton. It's very slow in the sense that, like, Froslass at the top, and then Tauros, which is okay, but nothing above that 110 speed tier. It's a very passive team, too. There's not much immediate offense outside of Tauros, in my mind. Maybe, like, a Trick Room Executor, maybe even, like, a Mixed Life Orb Seviper, but at the end of the day, it's still a Seviper, even if it's in low tier. It's not going to be the strongest thing in the world. So you'd think this team played a lot more into bulk and hazard stack, which it can definitely stack with things like Froslass, rocks here, spikes here. Realistically, that's it. It's kind of on Froslass and Pincurchin to carry the stacking aspect of it. But outside of them, though, in setting up hazards and kind of outlasting, this team doesn't have any sustain to keep that bulk alive and keep those things around. There's nothing wish passing into the Berserker, into, you know, the Camerupt, even Seviper, Executor, things like that. And realistically, it's not the bulkiest thing in the world as well. So, I don't know. I think there's definitely some positive aspects to this team, but it really does fall off in a lot of that sustainability and, really that immediate pressure in a way to, like, you know, go crazy when those spikes end up getting up and things like that. So yeah, I don't know, bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world. There's still plus sides, like I said. And I also like Tera Water. I think Tera Water with Tauros is awesome. Makes it really strong, and it's anti-screens, which is good. All right, next up for 15, we have the Birmingham Buizels. I also want to mention, none of these, rankings are based on any of the results. I can see week 1 right here. I didn't take any of those into account when doing the rankings for these. It is solely based on your team. All right, now jumping into it though, beyond from there. Tauros Paldea Blaze is honestly better than Water in my mind, at least offensively, especially in this metagame. Firefighting seems incredibly hard to switch into. Like, incredibly hard to switch into. Speaking of Water though, Water type Quaxwell? He's Quaxwell. The team kind of falls off a little bit beyond that. Now, I do like the Wiggly, keeping that stand, but that's really the main difference between those two teams, is I like the Wiggly Wish Pass into a lot of this bulk, into things like Skuntank, into things like Bronzong, into things like Gligar even to get it a free switch in, or things like the, Serena and, Belly Pull. Like, there's a lot of fat annoyingness, and Tauros is great offensively, but there's, like, no spikes, no spike pressure, no bulky water, which is really unfortunate. So no spike pressure, no bulky water, and no immediate offense outside of that Tauros. So I feel like this team is just kind of going to flail for a little bit before, end games start getting really scary and you start getting overwhelmed. So I like some aspects of the team. I like the bulk, I like the course, I like Wiggly holding things together. I love Tauros, but beyond that, and Tera Rock also seems incredibly underwhelming on a team like this, but I think that's just a byproduct of the Tera rule in general. But yeah, we'll see. Next up, we have number 14 in the Spear Pillar Shuckles. Now, a big thing with this one for me, like a really big one, is the round 1 take a ton. It's just tough to me. I know a lot of people really like it. Now, the typing, I know I just said, like, man, Fairy and Steel, incredible in this metagame. The typing is great, and it's a very solid Pokemon, but this is not a Pokemon you can build your team around. This is a support Pokemon, a Pokemon that comes in and helps out the rest of the team, and I really don't think that it really has that round 1 oh shit pick, if you know what I mean, because of the fact that we drafted Tankaton. Tera Dark is pretty okay. It's not bad. It's not great. It's cool for things like Pangoro, even like Tera Dark, Dark Pulse, Inteleon. Who knows? It could be pretty solid, right? I also love Inteleon in this metagame. I love how fast it is. I love it U-turning. I love the crits. I love how strong it can be. And the Hail Core is also a really interesting idea. Vanillix is scary strong offensively, as well as the Arctivish throwing off those big vicious rends with its Slush Rush, plus the things that Vanillix doesn't, or Vanillix, whichever one it is, doesn't appreciate. Things like Pangoro really tear up. We do have rock or ground type Krokorok, which is a bit unfortunate. And realistically, outside of these top 5, and not even counting like the Overpay and Tink, like I don't think it's a terrible Pokemon, but obviously an Overpay in my mind, and a little bit early for it. Outside of these top 5, the team immensely falls off. I don't think the webs are great or very needed. Emolga is an okay Pokemon. Arbok and Pivot grounded poison, that's cool. Bramble gives you a ground resist, which you got cooked by grounds otherwise, but then rock type or ground type Krokorok is also pretty tough, unfortunately. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one at number 14 here as we move on to the next one, which is going to be the Arkansas Arcanines. Now let me go ahead and find my notes for this guy. First up, I want to talk about how much I love Sandy Shocks, man. I think this Pokemon is going to be cracked for you. I love Sandy Shocks. Rocks, spikes, great dual stab. Even like random power gems and tri-attacks can really be solid coverage, especially in such a low-powered metagame. I think this Pokemon's going to be an incredible breaker, and like booster energy sets are going to just cleave through teams. Not much they're going to be able to do about it. I also really like the fat on this team. I love Registeel plus Weezing as a core, on top of things like Musharna and the Komala and things like that. It's a bit tough when it comes to the immediate offense, though. Really, outside of that Sandy Shocks, your next best breaker is what? Bombardier and Samurott. Now, Terraflying can be cool with Bombardier, but other than that, Terraflying's kind of mediocre. I guess it gets rid of the ground weakness for Sandy Shocks. is, at least somewhat cool. But the team is also another thing, too, I have to mention, is how slow it is. We peak at Sandy Shocks at the 101. And other than that, the team falls off pretty heavy, pretty darn fast. If you see me looking over, it's because I'm looking over at my notes on the other side. And there, I say no wish until this recovery. You have Komala, but it's a Komala. I don't know. You can't technically wish up things that, don't have reliable recovery, and things like the Weezing. And I actually do think that Komala Weezing is a pretty solid core, so maybe I'm underrating Komala a little bit, because this is low tier, lower power level, things like that. But yeah, I think that, again, where this team struggles is going to be kind of the passivity of it and the lack of immediate offense outside of that Shocks Bombardier, and I guess Samurott. I wish there was more to take advantage of these crazy spikes, and the pressure that Sandy Shocks put on. Something at the top to pair with it would have been really incredible, and I would have loved to see it. I do think that Bombardier is going to have to pick up a lot of slack for this team, though, and that's asking a lot of a Bombardier, that's for sure. Okay, number 12, we are moving on. I gotta find the tab, the Richmond Sudowoodos. Now, I will say about this team, I really like the top 3. I think the top 3 are a really cool core. Brute Bonnet, plus Flamigo, plus Espeon, and I love the Tera fighting aspect of it. Whether it be Tera fighting CC here, Tera fighting CC here, or Tera fighting Tera Blast for those dark types on like Calm Mind variants, or even just Life Orb variants, Specs variants, it's going to be really threatening. I love the Spike support from here. In the Klefki, I love Bulky Water Jellicent. He's an absolute demon, but realistically, this team has a lot of fall off from here. I love the hazards. I like the screens options as well, but there's also not much that takes advantage of the screens. It's a bit tough. I think a lot of the times you're much better off getting up spikes to the Klefki than you are getting up screens. You're much better off attacking with the Espeon than using it for screens, things like that. It's a bit of a slow team as well. What do we peak at? We peak at Espeon with 110, and then it drops all the way to 90 with Flamigo, and then below that, it's just slow. We don't count these shitheads down here. It has webs, but webs help just a bit. Not a lot. I do think that like fast Brute Bonnets under webs are going to be pretty solid for you. But yeah, it's just the big fall off outside of this top 3, and I guess top 5, but really the top 3 is really incredible. And the team kind of is a little bit lackluster in these bottom 5, and there's not a lot of cohesiveness down here. They really don't help out a ton. It also looks like our main ground is just going to be Brute Bonnet, which isn't good when this kind of our main offensive piece as well. So gonna have to be very careful about that. I think you can cheese past some teams with the Brute Bonnet action though. So definitely don't think it's like a lost season or anything like that. Okay. Next up, beyond the Richmond Sudowoodos, we have the Goon Squadron, who's really high up here. It's fine. There they are. Now, there's some really cool things a part of this team, right? Sylveon on low tier seems very solid, right? I love the Sylveon. I love the Tyrantrum. I think Tyrantrum is going to be incredibly strong. Incineroar with Wish Pass from Sylveon. Things like Fortress, setting up spikes and rapid spinning and volt switching around. The spikes pressure plus the Tyrantrum is also going to be incredible. I like the Tera Ice pick as well. These teams start to kind of fill out and play out much better at this point as well. Tera Ice Jolteon looks incredible. Even Tera Ice on Piloswine, making it a lot stronger, can be really cool. Or even like a random Tera Ice Tyrantrum. Don't know why you'd be it, but you have the benefit of making everything Tera Ice in these instances. So why not? You know what I mean? The biggest issue though is one, where's the water type? There's no water here. We have 3 evolutions, but one of them isn't a Vaporeon, which is pretty tough for me. I love all the Wish. I love all these things that this team offers. I don't know. I would have loved some kind of water. And also the second big one is obviously going to be these 2 guys. Now, I respect the Zigzagoon mascot pick. You want to have a funny move? Oh, that's fine. Excuse me. I'm tired. Having that funny meme pick is completely fine, right? Not bad at all. But I don't like the fact that there's 2, because if I'm building for your team now, I'm prepping for top 7. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm only prepping for 8, opposed to the 10 I'm prepping for everybody else. So I think that's a big downside for me. And a big thing too is the win conditions on this team are really kind of limited to Tyrantrum, and if we're not using Tyrantrum to win, there's not many things that have that immediate win power. Jolteon can be a solid breaker with that Tera Ice, but if it's Life Orb, it's wearing itself down, it Specs has trouble locking. Outside of that, there's no immediate offense in this team. As soon as Sneasel's not very strong. Incineroar can be, but if it's used more defensively, or it's going to be chipping itself down, being more offensive, that's tough. And a Pokemon like Sylveon is typically going to be forced into a Wish Roll on a team like this, where it's going to need to be more defensive and kind of form that backbone for this team, and wish up that Incineroar, and that Tyrantrum, and that Fortress, and that Piloswine, and the Abra, of course. But like I said, I really do like the Sylveon plus like Tyrantrum and the Tera Ice plus Jolteon Piloswine. I think those are really cool. I think the bottom half just falls off, and there's no water, and I realistically cannot put a team with literally no water type in the top 10. It's just not physically possible for me personally. Next up we have number 10, which is going to be the Dallas Tyrannostars. Let me get a sip of coffee. Oh, they're right here. That's even easier. So the Dallas Tyrannostars. Now, again, some really cool aspects of this team, right? some really, really cool aspects of this team. We have things like the Primeape with Tera Ghost. I think that's really cool to have, like, basically a mini Annihilate is a really interesting aspect of this team. And Tera Ghost is honestly good for other things as well. Tera Ghost Decidueye seems pretty insane. Being able to become incredibly potent offensively with either Shadow Balls or Spirit Shackles, being Swords Dance or Nasty Ball is going to be awesome. I think this Pokemon is going to thrive in a low tier setting and do very, very well for you. And even Tera Ghost Typhlosion can be pretty cool, becoming mini Hisuian Typhlosion. It has access to Shadow Ball, so it can, you know, kind of throw off that, which is definitely pretty cool. There's great hazard control with setters and removers. There's Rapid Spin in the Armaldo, as well as a bunch of hazard pressure from the Quillfish, which is going to be awesome. Forming your bulky water, as well as your grounded poison, which is awesome. Kilo is cool, but is it worth a round 1 pick is my main thing with this team. I feel like this team, if it had that one round 1 terrifying pick at the top, it would be an incredible roster, and it would be so, so much better. It's very hard for me to justify something like a Kilowattrel existing in a round 1 setting when this motherfucker is still on the board. Like, it is tough. There's some great things at the top end of this board, and the fact that a Pokemon like Goodra is just sitting there in a low tier setting really, really hurts me. It really does hurt me. What else do we have to say about this team? But yeah, I don't know. I like the Slurpuff. It kind of forced into a more defensive role. The webs can be pretty nice and niche, and like Defiant Primeape to Terse Defog and things like that. I think the main thing with this team, why it's kind of teetering outside the top 10, is because I'm really not impressed in something like a Kilowattrel, and I don't know if I can... Oh, and there's no ground type. Hey, Owen, there's no ground type. Now, Kilowattrel can function with Volt Absorb, but a lot of grounds, or a lot of electrics might have a way of chipping down that thing. Like, say, I want to switch into Sandy Shocks. Psych, you get Power Gemmed, now your team gets 6-0 by Sandy Shocks again. You know what I mean? So this team really struggles with electrics. It's really only Decidueye that can check them very well. Again, I'm a big Kilowattrel hater, as you can see. I'm not a big on the Pokemon in the slightest. So it's the lack of a top-end pick, plus no ground type. There's just no ground, and that's not a good thing. We want to have ground types in the Draft League format because we don't want to get Volt switched on forever. Okay, next up, we have the Dallas Dachbuns. Let me go ahead and find them. Where are they at? ADD. Okay. Now, this is the true epitome of, man, what in the fuck is that round 1 pick? It's Veluza. What did y'all do that for? Why we got Veluza so goddamn high on this draft board? I gotta know why we got it up so high. Outside of that, I actually really like a lot of aspects of this team. Let me go ahead and find it in my notes. But yeah, outside of Veluza, it's really cool. Terra Ground, I love that pick. I love it with the Talonflame. I love it even with Steelix. I love it with Toxicroak, and I especially love it with Frostmoth. I think Frostmoth is going to be sick, nasty, stupid, crazy for you. I think Appleton and Ampharos are good budget picks. Zweilous is kind of interesting. Same thing as Flittle. Not great Pokemon, so we're kind of like rocking out with the 8-mon team. And Veluza can find opportunities to set up with those screens. Same thing with Talonflame. Same thing with Toxicroak. Same thing with Quiver Dance. I almost said Iron Moth. Snow Moth. What do you call it? Frost Moth. So, I think that's pretty darn cool. Little Zweilous seem very, very useless, and the team doesn't really have a real water type, and it has a Veluza. I think if it didn't have a Veluza, it would be so nasty. If this team had the Goodra or something like that, man, I don't know, it would go crazy. I mean, what else is there? There has to be other things besides Goodra, because Goodra doesn't really appreciate being on a team without Wish. Whether it be, I don't know, Indeedee could be cool. Mabustiff is so high with the hail. Miss Magus, Mimikyu, Delphox, even Armorers. Like, there's so many cool Pokemon at this top end that I think could just kind of fill out this team a little bit better than something like a Veluza could. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm tripping, but that's just how I see it, at the very least. But, yeah, that's going to be number 9. Number 8, we're going to go on to the St. Louis Battlehawluchas. Now, this team has some really cool aspects to it. I really love Aerodactyl in low tier. I think Aerodactyl is an incredible Pokemon in this metagame. It is so blazingly fast. The option of DD, Choice Band, Life Orb, so many different cool things that it can do. I love the fat core of like Aloe plus Hisuian Quillfish with an Eviolite plus the Rotom plus the Sandslash plus the Dachbun we were just talking about. Like, I think these are all really cool aspects of this team, and there's definitely some really cool things that can go down with it. Let me see, where are my notes? Kind of just going off the top of my head for this first part. So those. But yeah, a big aspect to this team that I don't like is that there's no steel. Now, I'm not as critical with this one because there's not that many in this metagame. There just really isn't. So I can't fault you too much. I would have loved one to be grabbed a little bit earlier. And I really... I don't know, the speed jump is a little bit tough from Arrow to Haunter, so there's some underwhelming aspects of this team. The immediate offense outside of Arrow is pretty tough. This team is going to really rely on spiked pressure from Hisuian Quillfish or Sandslash, but if you can get up that spiked pressure, you can pass wishes around with Aloe and Dachshund for days, keep things like Type Null, Turt, Sandslash, Rotom, Quillfish all healthy, and then clean up with Arrow in the end game. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Haunter to be a big offensive presence on this team, and you have the Tera Poison to help out with that. So I think this team just macking a little bit of immediate offense, but I really like the bulky cores. I really like the Wish Pass. I really like the hazards. It's just really messing that top end breaker, and there's no steel type, big speed jump, so that's kind of why it's still middle of the pack, but has some great aspects to it, and you can definitely do some great things with it. Next up, we do have the San Diego Shiny Sligoos. Not to be mistaken with the San Diego Sligoos, because that's just not who this is. This is San Diego Shiny Sligoos. Shouldn't it be SDSS? I don't know. Okay, first up, of course, we have to talk about how great the ability Regenerator is, and how awesome it is they have 3 great Pokemon with it. So there's a nice little regen core right here. I'm assuming that we can't Shed Tail with the Cyclozar. If you can, kudos to you, man. You killed it. I love the bulk on this team, though. I absolutely love the regen core, plus Wish from Florges, plus things like Scrafty and Orthworm and the Articuno. Orthworm sets up hazards for days too on so many teams, and I really love this core right here. I love these guys together. I think the team is pretty solid speed-wise. It's going from Manectric to Cyclozar, which definitely isn't terrible. A big downside to this team is going to, one, be the water type is Marshtomp. I don't know what it is with you guys in drafting these NFT water types. It is NFT starter water types. It is bugging me, and I want you to draft better water types. That's a big thing for me. Having a good defensive water, especially on balanced teams like this, is really important. But outside of that, the big downside of this team is going to be like the lack of immediate offense that it has, and realistically it's going to be like, maybe there's like some Trick Room teams that can go crazy, like Trick Room OTR, Bro, like weakness policy, Trick Room Bro goes pretty crazy in some matchups, but realistically it's going to be that Terrify Shimmies here, and I think that's actually a really cool pick. I think it's going to be really tough for a lot of teams to deal with. I think even like Terrify or Florges with like Calm Mind, Moonblast, Terra Blast is going to be really scary for some teams to deal with, but outside of that, there's not a ton of immediate offense. It's really going to rely on a lot of hazards, wishing around, staying healthy, which I think is a very viable playstyle. And I think this is one of the teams that does like the bulky balance kind of approach the best in this league, because of how good Florges is into those Pokemon without reliable recovery, and how much regen there is on this team to kind of pivot around, spread Leech Seed, spread Sludge Bomb poisons, and spread hazards with that Orthworm, and, you know, go crazy and go to town. I also love Scrafty. I think Scrafty in low tier is going to be an incredible Pokemon when there's like 3 fairies and you have one of them. So I definitely think Scrafty can go pretty dumb too. But yeah, overall, a pretty solid team. I wish there was a better water, a little bit more immediate offense. But outside of that, I really don't think there's much to complain about. It's pretty solid. We're kind of getting to those upper echelon of teams. So this is a really good one right here. I'm a big fan of it. Okay, next up, we have the Florence. We have the Florence Fleur Cannons, not the Florence City Fleur Cannons, right? Yep, there we go. Now, this top 2, these 3 right here are incredible together, man. I really like Gardevoir, Palmot, and the Poltegeist. I'm assuming that Palmot can't Revival Blessing. I sure hope it can't. But regardless, these 3 right here are going to be pretty darn incredible together. Let me find this. But Palmot, and Poltegeist is going to be very scary. I wish there was a better Terra type. Terra Fighting would have been amazing on this kind of team. Even Terra Psychic would have been pretty solid for those stored powers of the Poltegeist. Really going to town, but I would have preferred Fighting. Or even Fairy to hit those dark types. Give Poltegeist something to hit those things, because it's going to be a certified demon with the right Terra. Now maybe Terra Blast Dragon and put in some work. I don't know. Dragon gives a good neutral defensive typing to a lot of things. If you want to change your resistances around, say you want to go Terra Dragon Unaware Quagsire, it can be really annoying, and you start spreading some Toxics and some Spikes and things like that. I love the hazard control on this team with Quag setting up a bunch of hazards, this thing spinning in the way, this having the option for hazards. Cling Clang is actually pretty solid in low tier. The double normal is interesting, but their solid speed on this team, I mean, it kind of falls off from 105 down. But, you know, there's still some pretty scary offensive threats. Decent bulk. I really do wish that there was some kind of wish pass into things like Cling Clang and Scentiscorch, but I actually really like this, like, defensive trio right here. They can be very solid. And again, we finally have bulky water and bulky ground that's above 3 points, which really isn't that bad. But I love this top 3, and especially Gardevoir and low tier is going to be such an incredible Pokemon for you. It is bar none impossible to switch into a Gardevoir on low tier if you're playing it and using it correctly. So I think if you do that, you're going to be in a good spot to have a pretty darn deep run this season. And you have a pretty solid squad here. Next up, we have the double Draco droppers. And man, the top end of this team is disgusting. I mean, Glade in low tier is borderline bannable at this point, in my opinion, with the sharpness buff. That Pokemon's like ridiculously strong. It is so damn strong with sharpness, with either Sacred Sword, Cyclone Cut, Night Slash, Leaf Blade, all those different things. It can Sword Dance, it can Agility, it can be Scarf, Band, Life Orb, AV, so many different things. It's very scary, and that plus Sharpedo seems so unbelievably gross. Then we have great speed in the Salazzle, we have great Wish Pass in the Farigiraf, we have the Hail Core, which is a really cool aspect of the team. Oricorio is good offensively, defensively. Knucklestack is a bit mid. Hakamo is not a Pokemon. And Stunfisk is an incredible low tier Pokemon. It gives you a great, reliable, cheap ground type, which I really do love about this team. So there's really, really cool aspects of this team. Now, one bad aspect is you have Sharpedo, which I'm fine with. I love Sharp, and I love that offensive core at the top, but the fact that we do not have a bulky water is tough. Those matchups into scary offensive fires are going to be terrible unless you have Knucklestack to check them, and that's usually not a great thing, especially when you have Hail. If your fire resists are Salazzle, Sharpedo, and Knucklestack, things are going to get a bit tough against those things. Beyond that, the speed tiers are pretty bad jump-wise. I mean, we go all the way from 117 down to 95. Now, you do have speed, though, which is nice, and obviously some decent speed control with the Hail, plus the speed boost shenanigans and things like that. But yeah, I love the value picks. I love the offense on this team. Defensively, it's a little bit lackluster, but you know, it has the right pieces, and especially this top 2, I think are going to carry you this season. I think if you can use those top 2 well, you might just kind of take this whole thing home. Realistically, I could totally see it. So, yeah, with that being said, we can kind of continue to keep on moving on in number 4, which is going to be the Path of Braviary, which is a super sick team name. The POB, baby. We got the GOAT, Heracross. I think Heracross in low tier is an incredible, incredible Pokemon. Whether it be Guts, whether it be Scarf Moxie, SD Trailblaze this gen is so scary for teams to deal with. And that plus Sigilyph, which I think is an incredibly solid low tier pick, is going to be very scary for teams to deal with. Floatzel with Tera Electric also seems awesome. It seems really tough to check that thing. If it can have Ice, Electric, and Water coverage all in one, with Water Electric being Stab, that's going to be very tough to deal with. It's very fast, too, and it can really prevent a lot of things. We have the Steel, we have the Fairy, we have great hazard control in Eldegoss, plus Hazard Setters and Reverum, plus especially Diancie getting spikes this gen. Oh, baby. I think that's incredible for it. Right on, good bulky low-tier ground. We have the Morgrand, too, even for screens, if we want to do some cheesy things with Sigilyph, which is definitely pretty darn awesome. So there's some really positive points to this team. There's really some scary stuff, but yeah, I don't know. What's my biggest issue with this team? Sorry, I'm looking at my notes and I kind of like fumbled over my words a little bit because I saw things that I already talked about. The only thing is, I get the Tera Electric plus Floatzel. I would have loved maybe a different Tera. I think Tera Water would have been cool. But again, we're getting to the point where I don't have a ton of complaints for a lot of these teams. Oh, I remember our bulky Water's Floatzel. Especially for tearing it. So that could be a pretty tough aspect of it, but I actually think that you have the things that you need to resist water for pretty well covered with things like Rhydon and things of the sort. So, with like fire resistance and stuff like that. So, pretty solid stuff. very solid team. We're getting up there. We're starting to, get to the upper echelon of teams. We're moving into our top 3 right now, and it's going to be the Glendora Gogoats at number 3. I really like this defensive core as a main thing. Hisuian Typhlosion seems really cool to build from. I won't lie, it seems really cool. But the big thing with me is going to be this defensive core. Milo, Chestnut, Mudsdale, Aromatisse, Doublade, and even Golbat, Kecleon. This thing keeping these guys all healthy, Milo plus this, plus this, plus this. It's going to be really tough to deal with this team, plus hazards, plus the solid speed tiers of Sneasel and Electrode really forcing certain switches, plus the Hisuian Typhlosion being very scary with hazards up. Just throwing off fire and ghost attacks. There's going to be a lot of passive damage via status going on because of the Typhlosion as well. Just burning everything. I really think that this Typhlosion team is going to be very, very solid. The biggest issue I have with I think the biggest issue I have with this team is going to be the Tera bug. I'm not a big fan of the Tera bug aspect of this team. I don't really see what it benefits all too much. If you had an idea, let me know. You can shoot me a Discord DM, or you can even comment down below if you're not scared of people seeing it. I'm a bit iffy on it coming to the Tera bug, but other than that, I absolutely adore this defensive core. I think it's very solid. And again, we're kind of getting nitpicky once we get towards the top because these teams are very good. Number 2, we have the Garland Rowlets. Where are they at? Where are the Garland Rowlets? There it is. Cool. So we have some pretty scary stuff on this team. I love Tox plus Hazards plus Sand. I think this is going to be so scary offensively. These 3 are going to be very, very tough to deal with. I love the bulky core too of Vaporeon plus Escavalier. It's going to be great. Hazards with the Toadstool as well as Good Wish into it. Statland is another Sand option. I kind of just completely looked over that guy. Is another really cool aspect of this team. I think offensively, this team's going to be very, very scary. I wish Tera Normal was kind of the go this time around because this plus this would have really appreciated that Tera Normal. But other than that, that team is going to be really, really solid. I love the defensive core. I love the Vapo Wish passing into this, into this, into this, even into this, even into this, even into this, or even if we find this opportunity. There's a ton of cool things. Terra Grass is a bit mediocre, but it helps Lycanroc break through waters, and same thing as Escavalier, I suppose. So, that could be cool potentially. Who knows? I think it's pretty cool. Then, lastly, of course, we have to talk about the number 1 team, which is going to be not that one. I already talked about that one. Let's start with a B, though. The Blades of Bengaluru, which is a demonic team, and Anime Bisharp going crazy right here. This core right here, ladies and gentlemen, of Swellow plus Arcanine plus Empoleon plus Hariyama plus... There's not a bad Pokemon in this team outside of them. Fucking Palpitoad. What is up with you guys in these low tiers? And that's going to be the biggest issue with this team. It's going to be the ground. And we'll just get that out of the way quick. The ground is a Palpitoad, which kind of blows ass. That's pretty terrible. But the other pieces on this team are crazy. Tera Normal for these 2 guys seems absolutely flabbergasted. It seems insane. Like, what in the world do you do about a Tera Normal Boom Burst or a Tera Normal Burned Facade? Or a Choice Band Extreme Speed from the Arcanine that can also Flare Blitz and close combat you in the fucking dome piece. Like, it's going to be really, really tough. I wish this team had some wish into things like Empo, Hariyama, but they're very reliable Pokemon. Empo is a great rocker. Hariyama is great with an AV. It's great in a Trick Room. It's great with a Flame Orb. It's, the double Guts core is awesome. This can also be Tera Normal with Facade, which is incredible. I love the webs aspect of the team. Whimsicott is going to provide some great support, and even some like low tier sleepers like Pikachu and Alolan Raticate can definitely another normal one. Look at the normal gut spam. And again, in a metagame where there's so little normal resist, I think this is a really cool option. So I'm pretty impressed with this team. I like it a lot. This would be the team that I would want to use the most. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know if there's a particular team that you think I'm tripping on, or let me know what you thought about, your team if I was talking about yours. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you having me again this season. Hopefully I can give you guys some PRs again soon. I always love doing these. But yeah, see you guys next time. Later.